Hello, welcome to lesson 11.1, Intro to 3D Figures. This is our last lesson of the year actually, because after this we're going to do a project. And so before we do the project though, we need to know how to find the volume of three-dimensional figures. So that's what we're going to look at today. And actually just what are those three-dimensional figures? So let's look at the first one, which is a rectangular prism. And a rectangular prism is just basically a rectangle. So you see how at the bottom, this base here is a rectangle. It's a rectangle and then it has some height to it. That's what makes it that third dimension, right? And so to find what the volume of that would be, it's going to be the area of the base, which is length times width, and then we're going to multiply it by the height. That's all we're doing with volume. It's basically taking the area of this shape and taking it one step further by multiplying it by the height, by that third dimension. Now let's look at a cylinder. So the difference between a prism and a prism has a rectangular base, right? A cylinder has a circular base. So let's highlight cylinder. So that circular base, right, times the height gives us the volume of a cylinder. The area of a circle, if you remember from 2 units ago, is pi times radius squared. Then we just multiply it by the height. So we're going to just be using formulas for this whole lesson. So let's go ahead and try number 1. So what we're looking at number 1 is a rectangular prism, right? Because of this rectangle that I'm hovering over, that's the base. And it's got some height to it. So we're going to use the formula for rectangular prism, which is LWH, right? Length times width times height. Now, does it matter which is the length and the width and the height? No, not really, because it depends on if you just kind of rotate it or turn it. You can think of the height as like right now, I think the height is 11. I think the base is 5 and 6, and the height is 11, but I'm looking at it a certain way. If you were to look at it a different way, the height would be 5, or the height would be 6. So really, don't worry about it. Just, plug the numbers in. So I'm going to put in 11 times 6 times 5. And that's all we're doing is we're multiplying those numbers together. So 6 times 5 is 30. 11 times 30 is 330. So our answer is 330. Now, how do we write our units, right? This is three-dimensional figures, right? So we can't use feet. We can't even use feet squared. We have to use feet cubed, right, to show those 3 dimensions. It's length, width, and height. So that's why it is feet to the third power, which is cubic feet. All right, so go ahead and pause the video and try number 2 by yourself. So number 2 is also a rectangular prism. So we're going to use LWH again. So, and again, it doesn't matter which is the length, which is the width, and so on. Just kind of throw them in there. So it's going to be 3 times 4 times 9. Just make sure you know what you're looking at, and you're not doing like 3 times 4 times 4 again or something, right? Like this is 3 is this length here, 4 is this width here, 9 is this height. Or like I said, if you spin it a different way, just make sure you have the 3 numbers correct, please. All right, so 3 times 4 is 12. 12 times 9 is 108. Yeah, 108 kilometers cubed. There's our answer for number 2. So now we're going to go down to some cylinders. Again, the difference is that the base now is a circle. So, and our formula for a cylinder is that area of a circle times height. So we're going to actually just write that each time. Notice how I wrote the volume formula at the top? Always do that. So it's a cylinder, so I'm going to write V equals pi r squared h. So I'm going to fill in now. So pi does not change. The radius is 5. Now notice this radius and this height does matter, right? The radius has to be squared. So make sure you're putting that in the right place. And the height is 6. So now in our calculator, we're going to clear our calculator, put in pi times 5 and then the square key, and then times 6. and that gives us 471 point, it says the nearest hundredth. The nearest hundredth would be 2,4, and then this is feet cubed, okay? If you still need help with putting it in the calculator, please let me know, but use the square key. Make sure you use the pi key and the square key. All right, go ahead and pause the video and try number 4. All right, so number 4, we should have the same formula. We're gonna still plug in pi, the radius is 3, and the height is 7. So we're gonna put in pi times 3 squared, or just put in 9, right? Times 7 is 197.92, rounding it to the nearest hundredth. And that is kilometers, cubic kilometers. All right, so again, we are just using our formula for prism and a cylinder, and those should be pretty simple. Hopefully my tablet does not die. So let's keep going to pyramid and cone. So with pyramid and cone, same thing as the prism and the cylinder, or not same, sorry, similar, except it's going to be a third of the height, or yeah, it's going to be a third of a prism, basically. A cone is going to be a third of a cylinder. So the volume of a pyramid is, and we're just going to use this one because it's going to be mostly rectangular pyramids we're going to look at. And then the same thing with the cone. A cone is going to be a third of that cylinder. Okay, so let's look at number 5. So, and we know it's a pyramid because the base is a rectangle, or it's a rectangular pyramid, sorry, because the base is a rectangle, and then it's like coming to a point. So it does have height to it, but the height is coming to a point up here. So that's how we know it's a pyramid. So we're going to do 1/3, that's the formula here, a third LWH, or length times width times height. We're going to plug in the L is 11, let's put parentheses, the width is 12, and the height is 7. This one is a little bit easier, there's no turning because the base should be on the bottom here. So, but it still doesn't matter because when you're multiplying, the order does not matter. So we're going to do, now to do this in the calculator, I would multiply all the numbers first, then divide by 3 at the end, okay? Because 1/3 is just dividing by 3. So put in 11 times 12 times 7, and then we're going to divide by 3. And that gives us 308, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and try, oh, sorry, let's do our cubic miles. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and try number 6. All right, number 6, same formula, so same process. We're going to plug in, length is 4, width is 10, height is 5. And we're going to put that in. We're going to do 4 times 10 times 5, which is 200. I'm going to divide that by 3, or you can just do it all in one swoop, doesn't matter. And you're going to get 66 point, and so nearest hundredth is 67. Okay, and that would be kilometers cubed, or cubic kilometers. All right, so again, notice how pyramid is like a third of a prism, or not like, it is a third of a prism. A cone is a third of a cylinder. So we're gonna, and or you could just keep looking, right? Just copy it straight from the notes. 1/3 pi r squared h. So 1/3 pi r squared h. Again, cylinder is the area of a circle times the height, and the cone is just a third of that. So we're going to plug in our numbers. The 1/3 does not change. The pi does not change. The radius in this case is 2. Make sure you're squaring the right thing, the radius. We know it's the radius because it's like halfway through the base. And then the height is 7. So how do we put this in the calculator? We're going to clear. We're going to do pi times 2 squared, or put in 4, times 7, and then we're going to hit divide by 3 at the very end. And we get 29.6 0.32 cubic miles. All right, go ahead and try number 8. All right, so hopefully you did 1/3 pi r squared h. Our 1/3 and our pi do not change. The radius in this case is 4, and the height in this case is 11. So one more time in the calculator, okay, I would do the pi times the 4 squared, or times 16, times 11, put all that in, and then divide by 3. And you get 184.31 cubic meters. All right, so again, all of this lesson is just following formulas. Very, very simple. We got one left. We have volume of a sphere. And let's just, I guess, keep this color. So a sphere is going to be different than those other ones because it is basically like a circle all around, right? Let's actually read this. Or let's highlight this part and then read it. A sphere is a set of all points in space equidistant, not sure how to say that, from a given point. This point is called the center of the sphere. And then these are all things that we kind of reviewed before with circles. Again, a sphere is basically a 3-dimensional circle. So we're going to use this formula, which is 4/3 pi radius cubed, okay? And just make sure when you're putting that in the calculator, it's going to be not squaring, we're going to be cubing it. So you have to use that special exponent key. All right, so let's try number 9. So we're going to start with the formula, which is, because we see it's a sphere, right? It's a circle, a 3-dimensional circle, basically, different than a cylinder, right? And so we're going to write 4/3 pi r cubed. So now we're going to just plug in. The only thing we have to plug in with this one is radius. So we're going to do 4/3 pi, and the radius is 12. So we're going to do 12 cubed. And now how I put this in the calculator is I'm going to do 4. So, I could put 4/3 in parentheses, but just you can multiply 4 and everything else, then divide by 3 at the end. So I'm going to do 4 times pi times 12 cubed, or you could do 12 times 12 times 12, like 3 times. Okay. So I did 4 times pi times 3 12s, and then I'm going to divide by 3 at the end. Okay. That gives me 7,238.23 inches cubed. Okay. My other way to do it is I could put 4/3 in parentheses. So I could do parentheses, 4 divided by 3, then times pi times 12 to the 3rd power. I'm still getting the same answer. So just, if you want to know the different ways how to put in the calculator, just come and ask me. All right, try number 10 by yourself. We're almost there. All right, so we're going to do the formula. The radius this time is 7, so we're going to write this. We're going to plug in 7 for r. So I'm going to do it actually the second way I kind of said. So let's do this one more time. So you can do 4/3 as a fraction. So do parentheses 4 divided by 3. End parentheses. That gives you 4/3 as a fraction. Times pi times 7. Then the exponent key, which is that arrow looking thing that's above the square key. And then 7 to the 3rd power. So type in 3, then hit equals. And you get 1,436.76 to round it, cubic miles, okay? If you have any questions, please let me know, because you have to know how to find volume of these figures and what these figures are in order to do our last unit project for the rest of the year. So if you have any questions, please ask me. Otherwise, go ahead and try the practice. There's also a quiz today on finding the volume of these figures. And if you don't have any other questions, I will probably, see you again with the exam and the study guide. All right, bye.